You've been told that logic will save you, that if you just think hard enough, plan carefully enough, understand deeply enough, reality will bend to your will. But here's what nobody tells you. The greatest minds in physics, the smartest people who ever lived, spent decades being completely, utterly, embarrassingly wrong about how reality works. And when they finally figured it out, it broke their brains, it terrified them. Some of them spent the rest of their lives trying to undo their own discoveries. I'm talking about Max Planck, Albert Einstein, the architects of quantum mechanics. And here's the kicker. They weren't wrong because they weren't smart enough. They were wrong because reality itself doesn't follow the rules your logical mind insists it should. Let me be clear about something. Your mind failing to predict outcomes, your careful plans falling apart, your desperate need for certainty meeting a universe that refuses to be certain? That's not a personal failure, that's physics. Classical physics, the physics of predictability, of cause and effect, of if I do X then Y will happen, gave what scientists called ridiculous answers when faced with the real nature of reality. Literally. They called their own predictions ridiculous, so if your logical mind is giving you ridiculous answers about your life right now, if overthinking is creating more problems than solutions, you're in excellent company. Because here's the truth I'm going to show you today. The quantum revolution wasn't just a revolution in physics. It was a revolution in how reality itself works. And that revolution has everything to do with why your transformation isn't happening the way you think it should. Ready to go deeper? Let's talk about the day reality broke. Picture this. It's 1900. The physics community is confident, comfortable. They've figured out the universe. They have Newton's laws, Maxwell's equations. Everything is predictable. Everything follows rules. Cause leads to effect. Action leads to reaction. The universe is a giant clockwork mechanism and we have the manual. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? That's the voice in your head right now. The one that says if you just understand the childhood trauma deeply enough, if you just do the healing practices correctly enough, if you just think about it one more time, you'll finally be able to change. Classical thinking, and it's about to meet its ultraviolet catastrophe. Here's what happened. Physicists were trying to predict how hot objects radiate energy. Simple question. Should have a simple answer. But when they used classical physics, the tried and true equations that had worked for everything else, they got an answer so absurd they couldn't believe it. The math said that every object, your coffee cup, your desk, your body, should be radiating infinite amounts of ultraviolet light, right now, constantly, which would mean every object in the universe would instantaneously lose all its heat and freeze. Pause with that for a moment. Their most reliable framework for understanding reality predicted something that clearly, obviously, empirically wasn't happening. The logical system gave a ridiculous answer. This wasn't a small problem. This was the intellectual equivalent of your GPS telling you to drive into a lake. And this is where Max Planck enters the story. Planck was not a revolutionary. He was conservative, careful. He respected authority. He believed in the established order of things. Sound like anyone you know? Maybe someone who was taught to be a good kid, follow the rules, not make waves? Planck tried everything to make classical physics work. He twisted the equations. He looked for loopholes. He desperately wanted, to find a solution that didn't break the fundamental laws of physics. But reality wasn't cooperating. So on December 14, 1900, Planck did something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He made a desperate guess. He violated the laws of physics. He introduced what he later called an act of desperation. He proposed that energy doesn't flow continuously like water. It comes in tiny, discrete packets. Quanta. It was like saying reality is pixelated, not smooth, not gradual, chunky. And here's the thing, it worked. His ridiculous hypothesis solved the unsolvable problem, but Planck didn't celebrate. He apologized. For years, he tried to find a way to reconcile quantum theory with classical physics. He wanted to cancel his own revolution. He was terrified of what he'd unleashed, because accepting quantum theory meant accepting something deeply uncomfortable. It meant accepting that the universe doesn't work the way your logical mind insists it should. Let me ask you something. Where in your life are you like Planck? Where are you getting ridiculous answers from your classical thinking? Your need for everything to make sense, to follow a clear path, to have a logical reason? Where are you trying to make the old equations work, even though they keep predicting outcomes that aren't happening? Maybe you're doing all the right things for healing, therapy, meditation, journaling, but the transformation isn't coming, not in the linear, predictable way you were promised. Maybe you're overthinking yourself into paralysis, trying to understand before you act, waiting for certainty before you move. That's the ultraviolet catastrophe of your mind, my friend. Classical thinking, the thinking you were raised with, the thinking that says figure it out logically first, is giving you ridiculous answers about your own transformation. And just like Planck, you have two choices. Keep trying to force the old framework to work, or make an act of desperation. Break your own laws. But here's where it gets interesting. Planck's quantum wasn't just a math trick. It revealed something fundamental about how reality actually operates at the deepest level. Electrons don't gradually gain or lose energy. They jump, randomly, without warning. One moment they're at one energy level, the next moment, quantum leap, they're at another. No smooth transition, no gradual climb, no earning it step by step. The jump happens, as the physicists say, without cause, without an impressed force. It's spontaneous, unpredictable. It seems silly, Planck's own word, but it's how reality works. Think about that. The fundamental building blocks of reality don't follow the rules of gradual progress. They leap. And if that's true for electrons, if that's true for the literal fabric of reality, what does that mean for you? What if your transformation doesn't have to be gradual? What if breakthroughs don't have to be earned through logical steps? What if quantum leaps in your consciousness are not only possible but fundamental to how change actually works? Hold that question, because before we go there, I need to tell you about a patent clerk who was told he'd never amount to anything. Albert Einstein was not supposed to change the world. His teachers thought he was slow. One headmaster told his father, "It doesn't matter what he does. He'll never make a success of anything." He couldn't get a university position, so he took a job at the Swiss patent office. Technical expert, third class, evaluating other people's inventions while his own ideas that would reshape reality itself, collected dust. But here's what I want you to really hear. While working that mundane job, Einstein had his miracle year, 1905. He published 4 papers that revolutionized physics. One of them extended Planck's desperate quantum hypothesis into something even more radical. Einstein said light itself, doesn't just carry energy in packets. Light is packets. Particles. Photons. This was heresy. Everyone knew light was a wave. The evidence was overwhelming. Interference patterns, diffraction, every experiment confirmed it. But Einstein looked at the photoelectric effect, the way light knocks electrons out of metal, and said, wait, this only makes sense if light is particles hitting the surface like tiny bullets. And here's the stunning part. He was right, but nobody believed him. Not for 5 years, not for 10 years, not for 18 years. For nearly 2 decades, Einstein stood alone with his photon hypothesis. The greatest minds of his generation called it reckless. One physicist, Robert Millikan, spent years trying to prove Einstein wrong. Millikan did experiment after experiment, determined to demolish the photon idea once and for all. And you know what happened? Every single experiment confirmed Einstein was right. Millikan won the Nobel Prize not for disproving Einstein, but for proving him correct while trying to disprove him. Pause with that. The man who set out to destroy the theory became its greatest validator. Reality didn't care about Millikan's intentions. It didn't care about scientific consensus. It didn't care that the idea seemed untenable. Truth doesn't require agreement. Now let me ask you something. Where are you waiting for validation before you believe your own knowing? Where are you dismissing your intuition because it doesn't match the consensus reality around you? Where are you like the physics community, rejecting the evidence of your own experience because it doesn't fit the framework you were taught? Here's what Einstein understood that most people miss. The quantum leap, The sudden, seemingly random transformation isn't the exception, it's the rule. Electrons don't ask permission to jump. They don't earn it through gradual improvement. They don't wait until conditions are perfect. They jump when they're ready, without cause, without warning. And here's the radical truth that applies to your life right now. Your breakthroughs work the same way. You can do therapy for years. You can journal. You can meditate. You can understand your childhood trauma backward and forward. And then one random Tuesday, something shifts. Not because you finally understood enough, not because you finally did enough, but because you reached a quantum state where the leap became possible. It's not linear, it's not gradual, it's not earned through logical progression, it's quantum. And the moment you stop trying to force transformation through classical thinking, through effort and control and understanding, the moment you allow the quantum nature of change to work, that's when the leaps happen. But here's where most people get stuck. They stand at the edge of the quantum leap and they say, "But I don't understand how this works. I don't know what will happen. I can't predict the outcome." Of course you can't. You're trying to use classical thinking to predict quantum reality. It won't work. It will give you ridiculous answers, just like it did for Planck. The mystery isn't a bug, it's a feature. Einstein stood alone for 18 years with a truth that everyone else rejected. He didn't have consensus. He didn't have validation. He didn't have certainty about whether his idea would ever be accepted. But he had the courage to stand in the quantum uncertainty and say, "This is true even if nobody else sees it yet." That's the shift I'm inviting you into right now. Not understanding your way into transformation, but allowing transformation to happen in its own quantum way. Sudden, mysterious, unpredictable. Are you ready for that level of uncertainty? Are you ready to release your grip on needing to know how it all works? Because here's what happens when you do. Here's what the quantum revolution revealed that will change everything about how you approach your own healing. The observer changes the observed. Your active observation, your choice of what to look at, what to measure, what to focus on, literally determines what becomes real. And that's where we're going next. But before we dive into the observer effect, I have a question for you. If you're feeling something shift right now, if something in this is landing, drop one word in the comments. What quantum leap are you ready for? Not what you think you should be ready for, what you actually feel ready for, even if it scares you. Let's go deeper. Now we come to the heart of the mystery, the part that broke physics and will break your mind in the best possible way. Light is a wave. The evidence is irrefutable. You can demonstrate it. Shine light through two slits and you get an interference pattern on the screen behind, waves overlapping, peaks and troughs. Undeniable. But light is also a particle. The photoelectric effect proves it. Individual photons hitting electrons like billiard balls, discrete packets of energy. Undeniable. So which is it, wave or particle? And here's where reality says yes, both, simultaneously, depending on how you choose to look at it. If you set up an experiment to demonstrate wave behavior, you'll see waves. If you set up an experiment to demonstrate particle behavior, you'll see particles, the same light. Two completely contradictory natures, and the only difference is your choice of observation. This is called wave-particle duality. And it's not a quirk of light, it's fundamental to reality itself. Let that sink in for a moment. The way you choose to observe something determines what it becomes. Not what it was all along, what it becomes. Your observation doesn't just reveal reality, it creates it. Now, I can already hear the classical mind objecting. That's impossible. Reality is objective. Things are what they are regardless of whether we observe them. But that's exactly what physicists thought too. And they were wrong. There is no what things are independent of observation. There's only what things become when observed. And here's where it gets personal. Here's where quantum physics stops being abstract and becomes the key to understanding why your life is the way it is. You are the observer. Every moment you're choosing, consciously or unconsciously, what to observe, what to focus on, what to measure, what to look for. Are you looking for evidence that you're broken? You'll find waves of brokenness, interference patterns of trauma repeating. Undeniable proof that you're damaged beyond repair. Are you looking for evidence that transformation is possible? You'll find particles of progress, discrete moments of growth, quantum leaps of healing, the same life. Two completely contradictory experiences, and the only difference is your choice of observation. But here's the paradox, and this is where most spiritual teachings get it wrong. You don't get to choose what's true. Light really is both wave and particle. Your trauma really happened and healing really is possible. You really are both wounded and whole. What you choose is which aspect to demonstrate, which version to collapse into reality through your observation. Think about it like this. You have a traumatic memory. That memory exists as a quantum superposition, a wave of potential meanings. You can observe it through the lens of "this broke me and I'll never recover." And in that observation, the wave collapses into a particle of identity. I am broken, that's what I become. Or you can observe it through the lens of "this happened and I'm learning to integrate it." And in that observation, the wave collapses into a different particle. I am healing, that's what I become. The memory doesn't change, but what it means, what it creates in your lived reality, depends entirely on your observation. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't just look on the bright side. This is quantum mechanics applied to consciousness. And here's the most important part. You don't have to resolve the contradiction. You don't have to choose one truth and deny the other. Light is both wave and particle. You are both broken and whole, both damaged and divine, both stuck and transforming. The classical mind can't hold this. It needs everything to fit into neat categories. You're either healed or you're not. You're either functional or you're a mess. But quantum reality says you're both, simultaneously. And which one shows up depends on what you choose to observe in this moment. So here's my question for you. What are you observing right now? Are you running the "show me how I'm broken" experiment over and over? Are you constantly measuring your dysfunction, your triggers, your failures to heal? Or are you willing to run a different experiment, to choose to observe the evidence of your resilience, your growth, your capacity for quantum leaps? Not because the brokenness isn't real, but because the wholeness is equally real. And you get to choose which one to demonstrate. Let me give you something practical, something you can do right after this video. For the next 24 hours, run this experiment. Every time you catch yourself observing evidence of your limitation, pause. Don't deny it. Don't fight it. Just acknowledge. I'm running the particle experiment right now. Then ask, what would the wave experiment look like? What evidence of possibility exists in this same moment? Both are true. Both are real. You're just choosing which one to collapse into your lived experience. This is the observer effect in action. This is quantum consciousness. This is how you become the scientist of your own reality instead of the victim of it. And if this is landing, if something is shifting, I want you to do something for me. Hit that like button. Not for me, for you. It's a quantum measurement. You're observing and acknowledging, yes, I'm choosing transformation right now. That simple action collapses the wave function. It makes the shift real. But we're not done yet, because there's one more layer to this mystery, one more revelation that will change everything. Let's keep going. Remember Robert Millikan, the physicist who spent years trying to disprove Einstein's photon theory? Here's what I didn't tell you about that story. Millikan hated the photon hypothesis, hated it. He called it wholly untenable. He designed experiment after experiment specifically to demolish it, and every single experiment confirmed Einstein was right. Think about the irony. The person most determined to prove something false became its greatest validator. Millikan's intentions didn't matter. His beliefs didn't matter. His desire for reality to work differently didn't matter. Reality kept showing him the truth anyway. And here's what I love about this story. Millikan still won the Nobel Prize, not for being right, but for doing rigorous science even when it contradicted his own beliefs. He proved something he didn't want to be true, and he accepted it anyway. That's intellectual honesty. That's scientific integrity. That's what it looks like to let reality be more important than your need to be right. Now let me ask you something. What truth is your own experience trying to show you that you keep denying because it doesn't fit your framework? What evidence keeps appearing in your life that contradicts your story about who you are and what's possible for you? Maybe it's the moment you felt genuinely happy and immediately dismissed it as a fluke. Maybe it's the relationship that worked and you couldn't accept you deserved it. Maybe it's the success that came easily and you attributed it to luck instead of recognizing your own capacity. You're like Millikan, running experiments to prove you're broken. And reality keeps showing you evidence of wholeness. But you won't accept it because it contradicts your hypothesis. What if you stopped fighting the evidence? What if you let reality show you what's true? Even if it means you have to release your attachment to being damaged beyond repair. But here's the thing. Even after Millikan proved Einstein right, the mystery didn't go away. To this day, more than 100 years after Planck's desperate hypothesis, more than a century after Einstein's photon revolution, we still don't fully understand quantum mechanics. We can use it. We can predict with it. We've built entire technologies on it, but the fundamental nature of what's happening, still a mystery. The physicist Richard Feynman famously said, "I think I can safely say that nobody understands quantum mechanics." And here's why I'm telling you this. Because you need permission to not have all the answers. You've been operating under the belief that understanding comes first, then transformation. That you need to figure out why you are the way you are before you can change. But the quantum revolution proved that's backwards. Planck didn't understand what he was proposing. He just made a desperate guess that worked. Einstein didn't fully understand the implications of photons. He just followed the evidence. The mystery came first. The understanding, partial, incomplete, ongoing, came later. And it's still coming. The enigma extends beyond physics to the nature of observation itself, to consciousness, to the relationship between the observer and the observed. We don't have complete answers, we probably never will. And that's not a failure. That's the nature of reality. So if you're waiting to understand your trauma completely before you heal it, you're going to wait forever. If you need to know exactly how transformation works before you allow it, you'll stay stuck in classical thinking. The quantum leap doesn't require understanding. It requires surrender to the mystery. It requires the courage to say, "I don't know how this works, but I'm going to make an act of desperation anyway. I'm going to break my own laws. I'm going to allow something to shift even though I can't predict or control it." That's what Planck did. That's what Einstein did. That's what you're being called to do right now. Release the need for certainty. Release the need to understand before you act. Release the grip of classical thinking that says, reality should make logical sense. Step into the quantum mystery where electrons jump without cause, where light is both wave and particle, where your observation creates your reality. The mystery isn't something to solve. It's something to live inside of. So what does this mean for you? What does it look like to actually embody quantum consciousness in your daily life? That's what we're going to explore in this final section. Because the quantum revolution isn't just history, it's happening in you right now. Are you ready? Here's what I need you to understand. Everything I've shared with you today, Planck's desperate act, Einstein's lonely stand, the ultraviolet catastrophe, quantum jumps, wave-particle duality, the observer effect, none of this is just abstract physics. This is your life right now. You are living inside a quantum field, a field that is infinite in possibility, a field that responds not to your effort but to your observation, a field that allows quantum leaps without cause or justification. And the question is, are you going to keep trying to navigate it with classical thinking? Or are you ready for the revolution? Let me be clear about what I mean by classical thinking. It's the voice that says, you need to understand before you change. Transformation should be gradual and earned. You're objectively broken and that's just reality. Spiritual concepts aren't scientific, so they can't be real. You should know better by now. If it feels uncertain, it's wrong. That's the old physics. The physics that gave ridiculous answers. The physics that couldn't explain reality. Quantum thinking says, mystery is fundamental to reality. Quantum leaps happen without cause. Reality depends on your observation. Science confirms consciousness matters. The greatest minds were confused for decades. Uncertainty is the nature of reality. Which framework do you want to operate from? Because here's the thing. You don't have to understand quantum mechanics to live quantum mechanically. Planck didn't fully understand his own theory. He just used it. Einstein stood with uncertainty for 18 years. He didn't need everyone to agree for his truth to be real. And you don't need to have it all figured out for transformation to happen. You just need to make your act of desperation. Break your own laws. Choose what to observe. So let me ask you, what would your act of desperation look like right now? What law of your personal physics would you need to violate? What rule about how your healing should work would you need to break? What quantum leap are you not allowing because you can't explain how it would happen? Maybe it's allowing yourself to feel joy without needing to understand why. Maybe it's releasing a trauma without fully processing every detail. Maybe it's believing something is possible for you even though you haven't earned it yet. That's your quantum revolution. And here's what happens when you step into it. You stop being a passive observer of your life and become an active participant in creating your reality. You stop waiting for permission from external authorities and start trusting your own observations. You stop trying to force gradual change and start allowing quantum leaps. You become the reluctant revolutionary inside your own consciousness. Just like Planck, just like Einstein, not because you're special, but because you're willing to stand in the mystery. You're willing to observe differently. You're willing to let reality show you what's possible instead of insisting it conform to your limitations. And listen, this isn't easy. Planck was terrified of his own discovery. Einstein stood alone for 18 years. Millikan fought the evidence even as it proved him wrong. The quantum shift is uncomfortable. It breaks your framework. It challenges everything you thought you knew, but it's also real. It's how reality actually works at the deepest level. And you get to choose. Do you want to keep trying to make classical thinking work, getting ridiculous answers, staying stuck in the ultraviolet catastrophe of your own mind? Or are you ready to leap? If you're ready, if something shifted in you during this video, I want you to do 3 things. First, hit that subscribe button. This is the Observer Effect series. We're exploring quantum consciousness together. Join this space, join this conversation, join this revolution. Second, drop 1 word in the comments. Revolution if you're ready. Mystery if you're still uncertain. Quantum if something clicked. Whatever word captures your energy right now, let it collapse the wave function. Make your observation known. Third, and this is the most important, go live it. Go make your act of desperation. Go choose what to observe. Go allow the quantum leap that's trying to happen. Because the revolution isn't coming. The revolution is you. But here's the thing. What I just shared with you today is only half the story. Because there's something Planck and Einstein discovered that physics encountered but didn't yet realize. Something that would change everything we thought we knew about consciousness and reality. In Observer Effect number 10, we're diving into the moment when physics accidentally stumbled upon the greatest secret of all, the undeniable scientific proof that the way you choose to look at reality literally determines what becomes real. We're talking wave-particle duality. The moment an aristocrat accidentally lifted the corner of the veil, the rebel who stood alone for 2 decades with a truth nobody wanted to accept, and the pragmatist who said, stop overthinking and just trust the mystery. If you thought today broke your brain, wait until you see what's coming next. This is where quantum mechanics stops being theory and becomes the instruction manual for creating your reality. Subscribe now so you don't miss Observer Effect number 10. Because the revolution is you. Stand in the mystery, trust the quantum nature of transformation. And remember, you don't need all the answers. You don't need perfect understanding. You don't need to earn your breakthrough. You just need to observe differently. The field is already responding. I'll see you in the next one.